Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing J.D. Vance's memoir, Hillbilly Elegy. This will be a little bit different from my normal review as it is a memoir. It's going to be a little bit more freeform than it usually is. J.D. Vance, just to kind of get into it, is a graduate of Yale Law School. He also went to the Ohio State University, and he also is a Marine as well. His story, his memoir, is about how he was born in Kentucky, what he calls kind of into the hillbilly lifestyle, and moved to Ohio in order to have a better life. His family moved there in order to get more economic opportunities for themselves and just do better for them. And the book is really him reconciling those two parts of him, where he is now, and as a decorated Marine, as a graduate of Yale Law School, and where he grew up, which was essentially the Kentucky parts especially would be considered destitute by most people's standards. And there's a lot of opioid addiction and a lot of unemployment and things of that nature. And the book is him going through his life, his early childhood, explaining the household that he grew up. He had by most standards, an abusive mother who was addicted, who became later in life addicted to drugs, and he was essentially raised by his sister and his grandparents. So that is the book, just kind of whole cloth. That's a brief overview of it. I will say I was given this book by my mom, who is from rural Kentucky, and so the people in the novel are people that she kind of instantly recognized as hers. So this is very much a story of those people in kind of the white working class, the working poor in Appalachia. He's good. He also is kind of quick to point out this is really just that story. It doesn't necessarily translate to white working class people in all parts of the country. Overall, I really enjoyed the book. I think I'm not the biggest fan of memoirs to begin with. The only other one that I can remember reading recently was Keith Richards' Life, which I also really enjoyed. I did enjoy this book. I think his writing style is pretty much pitch perfect. I think he does a really good job of giving you a story without getting bogged down by the details of it. Nothing really goes on for pages and pages here, but you also, the words he chooses and the stories that he tells definitely lends you to understand where he's coming from and the story that he's telling. There are some statistics in the book, but mostly, like I said, it's kind of first-person accounts of his. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed his writing about his family and about really up to the point where he leaves the Marines to go to college. That to me was a more impactful half. That's the first 200 pages or so. The last 60 pages or so, I didn't need as much. I guess you do need it just to understand that he kind of graduates from the Ohio State University and goes on to graduate from Yale Law. He meets his wife, and I think there's in the afterword of this, he has a child. So that's kind of where the book ends. He's relatively young. I think he's 34, 35. But that's really the book, is how he, as kind of a working class person, escaped what could have been a life of poverty and kind of the contradictions in that lifestyle, contradictions of his own life. I think if there was something that I didn't really care for about the book, like I said, the last 60 pages or so, to me, the most interesting part was his childhood and growing up in that environment and then leaving to go to the Marines. From kind of that point forward, it was less interesting to me. The struggles with his mother and kind of the struggles with living with his grandparents and living with different men in his mother's life, I thought that was good, but really after that, the interest level dropped a little bit for me. I also just the end of the novel, it felt a little shoehorned in. He's given a couple pages where he kind of makes prescriptive solutions to what is ailing the people in the region, and he kind of points to the lack of hard work for some, the lack of faith for others. He also points to the fact that the government can do a little bit better job as far as social services and things like that. They're kind of quick to break apart families when they maybe don't need to. He kind of points to the fact that these are usually very insulated communities who really kind of have extended bonds that may not be clear to people who are coming from the outside which I think were all good points. I think maybe my biggest frustration with that is, as someone whose family left in order to get economic opportunity, he didn't quite underline the fact that a lot of these communities just don't have the ability to make a living wage, that it's just really not there without more than a high school education. And in order to do that, most times they're going to be leaving. So as someone who left and then came back, in his shoes, I wish he had kind of said, hey, there's not really the economic opportunity here for a lot of people. They have to really leave to do that. And then you're kind of, his grandmother he uses his grandmother to kind of illustrate the point of, this is someone who left but has her foot kind of in both worlds still. She has really close ties to her original community in Kentucky. It's actually where she is buried. But she moved away in order to avoid a lot of the worst trappings of that. So those are kind of my takeaways. I did enjoy reading the book. I think that it is an interesting read for someone who's trying to understand people in Appalachia, especially in the white working class. More broadly speaking, I think he makes a lot of good points as far as what the mindset of those people are. Like I said, he illustrates. Most of his illustrations are done through people he's met in his life and less to do with statistics. So if you're looking for a more analytical approach to understanding that portion of society, I don't think you're going to be as happy with it. But I think just overall, I was really impressed by it. I think he did a really good job, especially kind of explaining his upbringing and kind of how it led him to where he got to, and how the importance of kind of people in his life who you wouldn't necessarily see from the outside, or you wouldn't assume are the people who helped you. So I thought those were all really trenchant points. He's a really smart guy. I wish him the best in the future. It'll be interesting to see if he writes or does anything after this. This is, from what I've read, a very popular book, so I wouldn't be surprised if 10, 20 years down the line he comes up with a policy, a nonfiction policy, to kind of dig deeper into some of the things that he kind of just touches on the surface of. So that's Hillbilly Elegy. Next time I'm going to be reading Gun Machine by Warren Ellis, which is a novel. As always, if you like this video, please feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below if there's something you feel that I missed. Until next time, bye.